Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Shri Gaura Bhaktivedanta. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Just want to make sure that we're recording the session. Yeah, it should be recording. So welcome, dear devotees, to today's session, how to distribute Sri Caitanya Caritamrita. This is a wonderful topic, and I offer my obeisances to all of you who have made the time this morning to come and attend the session. It certainly demonstrates that you have a desire and a will to want to become involved in this effort to distribute Sri Caitanya Caritamrita, and that's most glorious. So thank you for your participation. So in terms of how we're going to conduct today's session, I've done a presentation with some slides. That should take us, between 40 to 45 minutes. I'm quite happy if at any point in time you would like me to pause while I'm going through the presentation, to interrupt me and then ask a question, or if you want to make a point and an addition. I'm very conscious that many of you all have been involved and are involved in distributing Srila Prabhupada's books, and you all are great Maharatis in Prabhupada's book distribution mission. These are just my limited realization. It says you can only speak to the extent of your own realizations. So I'm conscious that my own realizations are very limited. So you please feel free to want to add, to contribute. And if we could make it as interactive as possible, then that'll be wonderful. So and before I start, has anyone got any questions, or would anyone like to express any expectations they have from today's session? So it'll help steer me also. What do you hope to take away from today's session? Okay, devotees are shy to speak today. Okay, so let's start off today's session. Firstly, with some key principles. Distributing Srila Prabhupada's books is not about learning some technique or some method, and then we apply that technique. Distribution of Srila Prabhupada's books is a transcendental activity. It goes beyond the material world. And our success in distributing Srila Prabhupada's books is not dependent on any charisma of our own, any particular technique to employ, any type of method. Because this is a transcendental activity, mundane approaches do not work, although they can help. Once one devotee approached Srila Prabhupada, and he told Srila Prabhupada that he's very eager to arrange some seminars or training sessions for the devotees how to distribute books. Srila Prabhupada was supportive and encouraging to this devotee. But Srila Prabhupada said, ultimately, the best teacher is the Lord within our heart. The Supersoul. That is where our inspiration comes from. That is where the words that we speak emits from. And when we connect with the Lord within our heart by our sincere desire, our enthusiasm, and our wish to please the spiritual master and the Lord, in this way we become empowered by the Lord and the Supersoul. Book distribution, we are just instruments. We should allow ourselves to become instruments, happy and willing instruments, and we should not resist. We should just think to ourselves always that I need to put myself out there. I am like a puppet in the hands of the Lord. but I have the sincere desire to want to do the service to please Srila Prabhupada and our Acharyas and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has his plan. With or without our efforts, with or without us, the Lord's plan will be executed. The spiritual master's plan will be executed. It is just that our own lives will become glorious if we become part of the Lord's plan. In the Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada gives a beautiful purport to one of the verses, where he talks about the oneness in the Bhakti tradition. Normally, Srila Prabhupada used to speak out, he speaks out very much about the Mayavadi concept of oneness. But in this purport, Srila Prabhupada says in the Bhakti tradition, we also have a concept of oneness. And that concept of oneness is when we make our desire one with the desire of the Lord. And when we make our desire one with the desire, we become one with Krishna. And beautifully in this purport, Srila Prabhupada talks about the gopis of Vrindavan. There is no dancer as good as Krishna. His movements are exquisite, they are perfect. In one sense, there's no one can even replicate or compare to Krishna's movements when he dances. But Srila Prabhupada writes that during the rasa dance, the gopis, they were able to match every single step and movement of Krishna's, because their desire was so one with Krishna's that they could match. So in the same way, this is our principles in spiritual life. Yes, we will learn, and we have to become organized, and we have to know how to present in a way that's all there. But ultimately, it is our sincerity, it's the Lord within the heart who will enable us to become successful in our endeavors to distribute books. Srila Prabhupada has expressed his desire. I want that every respectable person has a full set of Bhagavatam and Caitanya Caritamrita in his home. This is Srila Prabhupada's stated desire. Now it is for the disciple and the follower to try to fulfill the orders of the spiritual master and the acharyas. And when we try to do this, all success comes to us. We may be very small, we may be very tiny, but we have to try. Before we make any endeavor in distributing books, one of the biggest obstacles is our mind. It is our mind that creates doubts. Our mind that tells us what we can or cannot do. And when we come under the control of the mind, then our ability to carry out the orders of the spiritual master and to do what Srila Prabhupada wanted us to do, it becomes inhibited. So I thought, let's just, and I talk about myself also largely when I say this, let's just try to get the obstacles in the mind out before we speak about our endeavors to distribute Caitanya Caritamrita. Now, when it comes to Caitanya Caritamrita, I've listed out in my experience, in my own psyche, some of the doubts that hold me back or hold us back in wanting to execute Srila Prabhupada's desire. In this lifetime, we're not going to be able to, well, I guess I can't say we can't, because anything can happen by the power of the spiritual master and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But this is a service for many, many generations. To have a set of Caitanya Caritamrita in every home. We have a target of 300 this year, 300 sets. That is not even, barely even a fraction of a drop in terms of what needs to be achieved. But still, as Prabhupada said, There is a stone, drip by drip by drip. That little particle of water hits the stone continuously, and then you find a big crater within the stone. So this is how we achieve our goals. So some of the doubts is, oh, but Caitanya Caritamrita, people are not into reading. They won't read it. It's 9 books. They'll get afraid. But it is not like that. Even if they simply keep the books, even if they do not read, they will be benefited. So I just want to read to you a conversation between Srila Prabhupada and Amoga Leela. So Amoga Leela tells Prabhupada, one man who joined us about Ratha Yatra time last year was a solicitor. He used to buy our books, but he never read them. But he would keep them on his bookshelf. And he used to always think, those are such beautiful books. He used to think like that. Prabhupada, this is appreciation. Amoga, he never got time to read it. Prabhupada, it doesn't matter. If he keeps the books with appreciation, that makes his life sure. In short, he immediately comes in touch with God. Who keeps the book with reverence, with love, immediately he comes in touch with God. Because these books are representatives of God. So we should never think. And by the way, also, anyone who takes a set now, we give them the audio. So even if they do not read, they can hear. So we should never have this obstacle thinking, oh, it's so many books. There'll be very limited people who want to take it. I'll come back to this recently. What I've been doing over the last 2 weeks, just to keep my mind focused and completely absorbed in this marathon, I'm listening to all sorts of classes and presentations on the glories of Sri Caitanya Caritamrita. So last night, I was hearing His Grace Rameshwar Prabhu speak about the Caitanya Caritamrita marathon, which took place in June 1975. Prabhupada has given the devotees the instructions to print 17 volumes. So Rameshwar Prabhu went to Prabhupada and says, Prabhupada, so how many volumes each shall we print? And he was thinking, Caitanya Caritamrita is only for devotees. So maybe Prabhupada will say, 1,000 or 2,000, maybe most 5,000. So how many? So that will be 17 volumes have to be printed. How many of each do you think Prabhupada asked them to print? Anyone would like to offer a guess? Okay. Prabhupada said, print 20,000 of each. 20,000 of each. That was 340,000 volumes of Caitanya Caritamrita. It never had been done before. There was hardly a printer, even Dynapont couldn't do it. There were only 2 printers in America could do it. And there was trainloads and trainloads and trainloads of books. So Prabhupada's vision was not that Sri Caitanya Caritamrita is only for the devotees. It is for the masses. The second doubt people have is, we hear that Sri Caitanya Caritamrita is postgraduate. So postgraduate is very high. Very few people get into postgraduate. So only selected people. No. Prabhupada has presented Caitanya Caritamrita in such a magnificent way. Even postgraduate subject matter is accessible and understandable by the masses of people. Anybody can read Sri Caitanya Caritamrita. The third obstacle is we are overdoing this book distribution. We have Bhadra Marathon, then we have December Marathon, then you come with this Caitanya Caritamrita Marathon, and then we hardly finish that, then it's Bhadra Marathon again. I think this Divyanam and his team, Prabhu and his team, are just overdoing this book distribution. We need a little break. Vaisheshika Prabhu told us a really nice story recently. He said in their community in Silicon Valley, how they've been distributing Srila Prabhupada's books for years. And in their community, children were born. People got married. Devotees got married. Devotees got new jobs. Devotees moved home. Some devotees passed away. So in the community, there's just so much of transition, so much of change. But one thing remained constant for all of the devotees, and that is their service of book distribution. And this is what we would like to do in our own lives. There'll be so many changes. We may get old, we may get sick, we may have children, children grow up, children get married. So many things will happen. But our service to Srila Prabhupada in his book distribution remains constant. And the last doubt people said, but you know what? I haven't even read Caitanya Caritamrita myself. So how can I distribute it? I'm not even sure what is in the Caitanya Caritamrita. Prabhupada used to give the example of the postman. The postman, he may not be a very rich person, but one day he may deliver an envelope to you. And in that envelope is a check for £1 million. The postman is not a rich man, but he delivered you something that is make you very wealthy. So in the same way, when Prabhupada printed these 340,000 volumes, 20,000 sets of Caitanya Caritamrita in 1975, at most devotees had read some of the Adi Leela, but yet they were all distributing these 20,000 sets. So that is no obstacle. There's no obstacle. What do you think, dear devotees? You agree? Did I miss out any obstacle?
There is no obstacle, Prabhu. Your goodwill and Prabhupada's wonderful wishes and your Guru Maharaj's, we are going forward.
Yes, yes, that's the spirit. There's no obstacles. Just like Arjuna, when Dronacharya asked him, Arjuna, what do you see? He didn't see the tree. He didn't see the branches. He didn't see the leaves. He just saw the eye of the fish. Nothing else he saw. He was so singularly focused. So we want to be like that in our own consciousness. Our own consciousness, always thinking how to distribute Srila Prabhupada's books. One of my favorite quotations is this quotation where Srila Prabhupada arrived in America and he gave a lecture in December 21st, 1966. And he spoke about applying the order of the Guru. Prabhupada says, if you cannot do, if you simply think, how can I do? How can I do? How can I do? Simply this, if you practically cannot do, but if you simply think that how can I do, then you also become liberated. Then you also become liberated. And what to speak when we actually serve. Now, it's not nice to speak about oneself, but I had a tiny fraction of this realization. Since we started talking about Caitanya Caritamrita, my mind day and night, when I'm driving, when I'm in the shower, when I'm taking prasadam, whatever I'm doing, I'm just like been thinking how to distribute sets of Caitanya Caritamrita, how to motivate the devotees, what to do. And my mind, because it was so absorbed in this every day, it's so absorbed, I just simply forget about everything else. And that is what liberation means. Liberation means you forget everything else around you. You just remember the goal of wanting to please Krishna and the spiritual master. And that should be our thoughts. How to do, how to do, how to do. And simply by that, we'll become liberated. So with that out of the way, we'll progress. So there's largely two types of distribution when we talk about distribution of sets of Caitanya Caritamrita. The first type is the face-to-face type of distribution. And that is distribution where we meet people on the street, we meet people when we knock on the doors, and we meet people on the book table, and we meet someone we bump into in the supermarket, where there's face-to-face contact. And the second type of distribution is the more remote type of distribution, where by phone, email, social media, messaging, and so on, we try to get the message across to people about Sri Caitanya Caritamrita. Both methods are effective. Depending on one's circumstances, one may be able to apply one method better or not. Due to circumstances, 2 years ago, we were just starting our Caitanya Caritamrita marathon. I think we had set ourselves a goal of 150 sets. And then the pandemic hit us. And then there was lockdown. So for the first time in our lives, we experienced a situation like lockdown. Our initial thoughts were, oh no, there goes our marathon goals. But the sincere devotees of Srila Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya, they said, no. We shall still come up with a way to distribute. And I'll never forget that marathon. We distributed 163 sets of Caitanya Caritamrita. We smashed our goal of 150 simply by endeavoring to do it remotely. So for the purposes of today's session, I'm going to focus more on the face-to-face. And there's a reason for that. I'm also putting together another presentation on distribution remotely. Our Sankirtan General, Vaisheshika Prabhu, he always says that the leaders of book distribution, we need to codify. We need to show the devotees, what are the different ways by which they can approach people to take books. So I'm still in the process of just completing a presentation. I may do that as a separate presentation, and it may have just made today's presentation too long. But it's something, because of time, I just haven't been quite able to get there. But I'm pulling something together. So we'll focus on the face-to-face. So we have a PowerPoint presentation, which we are currently printing also, and we're putting into folders. Again, dear devotees, this is my limited realizations, presentations that's been put together. I've already got some other additional slides which I'm adding all the time to try to improve. This is something you can use how you see fit. You can remove slides, you can add slides. You will know what resonates with the people you're presenting, and you can shape it any way you like to meet the audience you're presenting, to meet the mood that you have. Every one of us, we have our own moods, we have our own realizations. So feel free, if you need any help in shaping your own presentations, I am at your service. But this is just something we pull together. Just trying to present Sri Caitanya Caritamrita, to whoever we meet. Is that okay? So Sri Caitanya Caritamrita, the crest jewel of all Vedic texts. Actually, we would not be inaccurate if we say that Sri Caitanya Caritamrita is one of the most important works of historical and philosophical literature ever written. It really only became available to the world quite recently, but with time, Sri Caitanya Caritamrita is going to make a huge mark in the literary world, without doubt. As more and more people, Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur, he said that Sri Caitanya Caritamrita will become so popular that people will want to learn Bengali simply to understand Caitanya Caritamrita better. Those were the words of Sri Caitanya, Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur. So this is what we normally try to present to people, Sri Caitanya Caritamrita. And so we have this verse here, which gives some context and perspective for people. If they make a connection with Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, what's going to happen to them? Prabhupada said, or our acharyas have said, that anyone who makes a contact or a connection with Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, the doors to spiritual perfection become wide open. Anyone, any contact they have with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So this is a beautiful verse, and it sets the scene for the following slides. Things that are very difficult to do become easy to execute if one somehow or the other simply remembers Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But if one does not remember him, even easy things become very difficult. To this Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, I offer my respectful obeisances. Now this will resonate very nicely with the residents of Kali Yuga. The mood and the consciousness of the residents of Kali Yuga is they want quick and easy. That is their mantra, quick and easy. In all aspects of life, want something that's quick and easy. So spiritual life, which is somewhat confusing and difficult for many people, if simply by remembering Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, spiritual life becomes very easy. And if you don't remember Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it becomes difficult. That may resonate with many people. So then we move on to is what is Chaitanya Caritamrita? You know, the first thing you mention is Sri Caitanya Caritamrita, so people will want to know. So we start off by giving them a brief synopsis. That Sri Caitanya Caritamrita is the primary biography detailing the life and teachings of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. So many of them would not even have heard of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. So that will resonate. It was compiled by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in 1557 in the Bengali language, which is about 500 years ago. It is the foremost literature of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. And what is so exquisite about this book? Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami perfectly combines biographical narration and philosophical exposition to make an entertaining and educational book. Entertaining and educational, those are words that resonate with people. His writing makes the weighty philosophical precepts of Gaudiya Vaishnavism intelligible for readers from all walks of life. So he tells them, this is accessible. The author has made this very deep knowledge accessible to us. And then we have a quotation here from Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur. When he said, Chaitanya Caritamrita was Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur's favorite book. He said, even if by some great misfortune, all of the books of the world burn down, but only one book remains, the Sri Caitanya Caritamrita, there will be no cause for lamentation. So that gives us, this slide gives them an overview. Again, devotees, you can shape it, you can say what you want, and present it according to your mood. This is just some ideas that we are presenting. And what is the Chaitanya Caritamrita? It is made up of three volumes or three sections: Adi Lila, Madhya Lila, Antya Lila. The early life of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, the middle life of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, and Antya Lila is the later life of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. And then I won't go into this. This is taken from Sutta Prabhu's book, Chaitanya Charitamrita Compact. It just gives you the main themes of the Adi Lila, like Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's incarnation, what it means, and so on, his education, his growing up, and what was his transformation, how he transformed from a so-called arrogant scholar to one who only chanted the holy names of Krishna. And then the Madhya Lila, and then the Antya Lila. It just gives them an idea. And then Sri Caitanya Caritamrita, just a brief overview of it. It consists of 11,519 verses. Bhagavatam is 18,000 verses. And in this book, Caitanya Caritamrita, 53 other scriptures are quoted. In essence, what Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami has done, the Vedic literatures are so vast, enormously vast, hundreds and thousands of verses. But in this book, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami has taken out the key, the essence of all the Shastras, and he's presented it in a beautiful way in the context of Mahaprabhu's teachings. So we are getting the best of the best in Caitanya Caritamrita. There's some other statistics there. You can also take it out. It may just bewilder people, but that's the essence of the scripture. Now, how is Sri Caitanya Caritamrita placed in the context of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam? So, people, like when we present Bhagavatam, people think that Bhagavatam is the same as Bhagavad Gita. We'll be amazed how people confuse. And people are not very knowledgeable, they do not understand. So this beautiful slide here, again extracted from Sri Caitanya Caritamrita Compact by Sutapa Prabhu, explains in a very easy diagram. Where does Bhagavad Gita start off? Bhagavad Gita starts off with the ABC of spiritual life. You are not the body, you are the eternal spirit soul. And where does the Bhagavad Gita end? What is the conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita? Sarva dharma parityajam mamekam sharanam praja. Krishna says, Arjuna, just forget everything else you've heard in this book or in my conversation, and you apply this one principle. You abandon all varieties of religion, you surrender unto me. You become my devotee. I will protect you. So that's where the Bhagavad Gita ends. And where does Srimad Bhagavatam start? So, Sarva Dharma Parityaja, the Dharma. Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, ends off with abandon all dharmas. So, Srimad Bhagavatam starts with the verse, Dharma Projita Koita Vatra. Rejecting, that's the second verse, rejecting all cheating religions. This Bhagavatam propounds the highest truth. So, Srimad Bhagavatam starts by defining what is real Dharma. And where does Sri Caitanya Caritamrita end? It ends in this verse here. Just like Bhagavad Gita, the summum bonum of the Bhagavad Gita is this verse 1866, Sarva Dharma Parityajya. The summum bonum, the ultimate verse that's explained by Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu himself, is this verse from the 12th canto. Chanting of the holy names of Krishna is the means to spiritual perfection. And that's where the Caitanya Caritamrita starts. It starts with Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu saying that I will come to teach the process of chanting by practicing myself. Mahaprabhu's mission is Yuga Avatar. He came to propagate the Yuga Dharma, which is Harinam Sankirtan. And when does it end? It ends the Antya Leela, where Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu shows the summum bonum, the ultimate position of the soul, and that's Krishna Prema, merged in ecstasy of Krishna Prema. So we can put that into context. Again, dear devotees, I'm conscious that it may be seeming that this presentation or our presentation is going to go long, but all of them are quite important. You can shape it, you can summarize it how you see fit. So now we've explained Caitanya Caritamrita in context. Now we've got to come back to Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. I first came to Krishna consciousness about 34 years ago when I was 18 years old. I went to the ISKCON temple, and there was a deity in our Durban temple. We have deities of Radha Radhanath, Shishi Radha Radhanath. On the left or the right of Shishi Radha Radhanath is Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. It's the first time I've ever seen or heard of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. I've never heard of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu before in my life. So there are many people, many people, a majority of people, they've never heard of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. So we've got to give them some idea of who Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu is. So we give them this idea from two perspectives. Firstly, who was Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu from an external point of view? And then who is Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu? From a tattva, from a point of truth, from an internal point of view. So there are 4 points we make in terms of who Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu was from an external point of view. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, he transformed the face of India in 4 respects. Philosophically, during his time, he met the greatest scholars, the likes of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, the Digvijay Pandit, Prakashananda Saraswati, and his 10,000 disciples, Venkata Bhatta. So many of the great thinkers and scholars Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu met. And he converted these great philosophers and thinkers of his day to the process of bhakti, Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Religiously, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu was a revolutionary. He organized the largest, most widespread theistic movement in India's history. Mahaprabhu came to propagate the Yuga Dharma. But the Mohammedans, like the Chand Kazi, they stopped Mahaprabhu, broke the mridangas, and issued an interdict that anyone who chants the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, they will be punished. And Mahaprabhu, even before Gandhi, sorry, that's also related to the last one politically. He started this mass movement. And from a theistic point of view, Mahaprabhu presented, previously it was voidism, it was impersonalism, but Mahaprabhu negated all of this voidism and impersonalism from the religious thinking, and he established personalism as the highest concept. Socially, the caste system was very prevalent. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, he indicated and he showed how the caste system does not apply to true spiritual life. Haridas Thakur, who was a untouchable from a Muslim background, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu made Haridas Thakur the Namacharya, the Acharya of the holy name, he designated. Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami, who came from Brahmin families, but who took up position in the Muslim government, he made them one of his most strongest followers. And in this way, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu showed by his associates, the conversations with Ramananda Rai. Ramananda Rai came from he says, a Shudra family. But Ramananda Rai, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu empowered him to speak. So this is externally Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. And internally, who is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in truth? He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who appeared in Kali Yuga as Yuga Avatar, as a devotee to propagate the Yuga Dharma of Harinam Sankirtan. So we present the slide, the next thing we'll go to people and say, oh, you are Hare Krishna devotees. You would say that, wouldn't you? That he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But in life, we don't work like this. Everything is based on evidence. Only if you present your evidence are we likely to even consider, let alone accept your proposition. So what is the evidence that Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead? There is plenty of evidence. And we have a little booklet we presented, a PDF soft copy, with numerous incarnations from the Atharva Veda, the Sama Veda, the Upanishads, the Bhagavatam, from the Mahabharata, Garuda Purana, Narsingha Purana, Padma Purana, Narad Purana, Bhavishya Purana, Vayu Purana, Matsya Purana, and Skanda Purana. I shared this booklet with many of you all on the Sankirtan Forever Forum. Anyone who wants it, just message me, and I'll send it to you. It's undoubtable. It's indisputable. It's 100% convincing. No one can challenge it. Even if one goes into the original Vedas, the Atharva Veda and the Sama Veda, there are clear evidences. So if someone then thinks, but why, if he's God, why didn't he present his God? Because he came to teach. He came to teach how to become a devotee. Therefore, he's Chana avatar, covered incarnation. Because one cannot simultaneously claim to be a devotee and claim to be God at the same time. They're contradictory. So Mahaprabhu never declared his position as God. His mission was to teach people how to become devotees of Krishna. So he covered. But those who are in the know, those who know, they will understand that Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu is God. So this Sri Caitanya Caritamrita, for largely 500 years, this literature was not acceptable. It was not accessible to the majority of people. As I said previously, it was written in the Bengali language. So this greatest wealth of literature, this greatest wealth of knowledge was not accessible. But in 1966, His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, under the order of his guru, he traveled to the West. And Prabhupada's mission was to present Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his teachings to the English-speaking world. Prabhupada actually didn't know how much time he would have. His desire was to give the world the cream of all the literatures, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Chaitanya Caritamrita. Prabhupada didn't know how long he had to live. So even before, Prabhupada presented the 10th canto, the most important of the Bhagavatam, in his Krishna book. And then Prabhupada wrote the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, the essential teaching of Lord Chaitanya in his book, the teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now, Prabhupada wanted to give the world the entire Bhagavatam, the entire Chaitanya Caritamrita. So in 1963, Srila Prabhupada stopped his work on all other translations on the Bhagavatam and any other books. And he decided that he wants to present the Chaitanya Caritamrita to the world. Now we know it took Prabhupada a lifetime and he didn't complete it. He only went, I think it was chapter number 14 of the 10th canto. But Prabhupada his life work was the Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam is 18,000 verses. Chaitanya Caritamrita is 11,500 verses. Dear devotees, in a matter of only 18 months, Srila Prabhupada finished the translation of the entire Chaitanya Caritamrita with purports, original Bengali, Roman transliteration, word for word, English translation and purport. It's unimaginable. And on 14th of November, on the occasion of Ram Ekadasi in Bombay, 1974, my Guru Maharaj was there at the time, and he says that every morning Srila Prabhupada would go for his morning walk. That particular morning, the devotees went up to Prabhupada's room because they would execute. His doors were locked. And the devotees were worried what's going on, because Prabhupada was very regimental about coming for his walk. And then they knocked on the servant's door. And the servant said, Srila Prabhupada was up the whole night. And he just concluded his translation of Chaitanya Caritamrita. And Prabhupada is in an ecstatic mood. And he said the devotees should all have a feast. So Prabhupada had translated it, but he wanted it published. So in June of 1975, Prabhupada was in Los Angeles. And it's all there, you can see on the internet. Prabhupada arrives. And the first thing he says is, where is book? Where is book? Where is book? I've finished translating the 4th canto of Bhagavatam. I've finished the entire Chaitanya Caritamrita, but nothing's published. I'm feeling very discouraged. So the next morning they walk on Venice Beach. Prabhupada's leaders from the BBT, they had got new equipment, done everything that they could. And they were very proudly going to declare to Srila Prabhupada that they are now in a position that they can publish 1 volume every 2 months. Sorry, every 4 months. So they were walking on Venice Beach, and Prabhupada is pushing the devotees. When are you going to publish? When are you going to publish? And they say, Prabhupada, very proudly, Prabhupada, we can do it. 1 volume every 4 months. And that was a record. And Prabhupada said, did some maths, and it said 17 times 4. He said, that's a too long time. I want you to publish all 17 volumes in 2 months. And Rameshwar Prabhu was the head of the BBT. He just blurted out, Srila Prabhupada, that is impossible. And Prabhupada turned, looked at him, with the penetration of the entire power of the universe. Prabhupada planted his cane in the sand, and he said, impossible is a word that exists only in a fool's dictionary. You are doubting the power of Lord Chaitanya. You're doubting the power of Lord Krishna. You're doubting the power of the spiritual master. And then Rameshwar Prabhu understood his spiritual life was on the line, and he said, Prabhupada, we'll do it. I've been watching for the last few days that entire encounter narrative of this Caitanya Caritamrita. It's a miracle. It's a miracle. You can see that it's divinely destined for Caitanya Caritamrita to come to the world. So Srila Prabhupada has given us this Caitanya Caritamrita. He's given us the task of now distributing it. So people, they like benedictions. So what are the benedictions Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami gives to the readers of Caitanya Caritamrita? There are many, many. I've just extracted a few and I've put them on this slide. Whoever hears of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's pilgrimage to various holy places attains the riches of very deep ecstatic love. Deep ecstatic love is very, very, very difficult to achieve. But one can achieve this simply by hearing of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's pilgrimage. Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes are all uncommon. Whoever listens to his activities becomes glorious, and his life becomes perfect. All of us, we want our lives to become perfect. Simply by Caitanya Caritamrita, we can. And this is from the Adi Lila, 16th chapter, verse 1110. The nectarian drops of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes can satisfy the senses of everyone who hears them. Now, we all know that it's impossible to satisfy our senses. It's impossible. They are always demanding more and more and more. But we have a benediction here. Whoever hears Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, our senses will become satisfied. Madhya Lila, chapter 24. Thus I have narrated Lord Chaitanya's past mercy upon Sanatana Goswami. When one hears these topics, one's heart will be cleansed of all contamination. It's so difficult. Anartha Nivriti. It is called in spiritual life, it is the long intermediate zone. We can go from Shraddha to Sadhu Sangha to Bhajana Kriya. But Anartha Nivriti, removing the anarthas in the heart, it's called in spiritual life the long intermediate zone. But simply by hearing the pastimes of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, anarthas are very quickly just removed, very quickly removed. And then lastly, whoever hears these pastimes of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu with faith and love will attain the shelter of the Lord's lotus feet very soon, simply by hearing and reading. With some faith and some love, we attain the ideal position. So this is some benediction for. Okay, Kalavati Mataji, I know it's gone over time. I'll send the recording. You have to leave. Hare Krishna. So the historical significance of Sri Caitanya Caritamrita. Some scholars have done some research, and apparently there's over 36 biographies of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. The key ones are by Murari Gupta and Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur. But all of these biographies, like Chaitanya Bhagavat, Vrindavan Das Thakur says he only narrates the earlier parts of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's life, and he focuses on the Leela only. There was not much in these biographies in form of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings. So Sri Caitanya Caritamrita was the first biography which presented both the early pastimes, middle pastimes, and the later pastimes of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, and included within it the chief teachings and conversations which Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had, which establishes the Siddhanta of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the topmost Siddhanta, like nowhere else. And also Sri Caitanya Caritamrita closes the circle of the re-establishment of Vedic knowledge. We had the Vedas, it was decried by Lord Buddha. He established Voidism that perpetuated or penetrated a lot through India. The Lord then wanted to negate Voidism. He asked Lord Shiva to come in the form of Sankaracharya. He presented impersonalism, but still the gap was there. The full import of the Vedas was not established. And then personalism was presented by Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. So Sri Caitanya Caritamrita, it closes the complete Vedic canon, the Vedic literature. Okay, what about scholars? What do scholars think about this? We have currently reviews for I think from about 10 different scholars, which we share. We've got a PDF document. But yeah, there's this is from a professor, Dr. Hobi L. Kapoor. It says, it is a remarkable document of great historical and sociological importance, giving a picturesque presentation of the socio-religious climate in India of Sri Chaitanya's life and times. This English edition, translated by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, is superb. It contains the original Sanskrit and Bengali verses with the English transliteration, synonyms, and elaborate purports, easily bearing testimony to the author's profound knowledge of the subject. And this is Dr. Bruce Long, Department of Asia Studies, Cornell University. Beautiful, beautiful appreciation. And we've got some even from Oxford University. So we can present appreciation from scholars of Srila Prabhupada's Chaitanya Caritamrita. So this marathon, we're trying to distribute 300 sets. These are the devotees involved you can contact. We are encouraging people to, if you don't have Chaitanya Caritamrita, to take. If you have, to sponsor or gift. And if you feel inclined, to distribute. The process is very simple. One simply goes online, clicks on the link, makes a payment. If you want it couriered to yourself, we'll courier it. If you want to pick it up, you can pick it up. If you want to sponsor, you can sponsor 1, 2, or 3, or even more. If you want to part sponsor, you have a friend, 2 other friends, 3 if you want to sponsor. You all put 25 pounds together. And in this way, you can spread Chaitanya Caritamrita. What do people get? They get the beautiful golden colored 9-volume set with original Bengali text, word for word translation, English translation, and extensive purports. The entire audiobook, a free companion guide, Sutta Prabhu's Chaitanya Caritamrita, and this beautiful gift you see on your left of the wooden carved feet of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This book is uniquely and masterfully presented in Bengali Roman transliteration, word for word, translation, and purport. It is very compact. It won't take too much of space. It's 18 centimeters high and 39 centimeters wide. This entire 9 volumes. Yeah, 9 volumes. We also have it in other languages besides English, Bengali, Hindi, Gujarati, Tamil, and Telugu, presented beautifully with wonderful illustrations. I'll stop there. So please don't hesitate, get your set. So I've been speaking for a long time. I didn't realize it was 1 hour. I do hope it was not too.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, lovely presentation. Yes, please share it with devotees on email and WhatsApp. It will be very handy. Yes, thank you so much. I think you're right. We got to be a bit bold and determined to do something about it. Don't just say, oh, it won't happen. It will happen.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments that anyone has? As I said, this presentation is for face-to-face. You can also do it via Zoom. You can invite somebody, or if you feel a bit shy, you feel there's too much taken what I've just said, you want to just invite someone to a presentation, that can also be arranged, where we'll present it via Zoom. You simply invite them to the presentation. We'll have dates available, and we have many different devotees who can present. So that's also an option. I'm working, as I mentioned, to other aspects of presenting and encouraging people to take via social media or remotely, and I'll put that and share that as soon as I can. Any questions or comments or feedback? I'll welcome feedback by all devotees, please. When I did this presentation to the children last week, and the children are doing very well. They are presenting, and I said, dear children, tell me which slides you think I should remove, which one has got too much words I should take out. And their feedback was, the children said, no, all the slides are good. We're happy to present all of them. But again, that's open to you.
Hare Krishna, Vrindavan Chandra Prabhu, thank you very much. I just wanted to say, well, especially those doubts that you mentioned, they were exactly the doubts that I had. So you have, but by mentioning them and talking about it, I think they have been removed, my doubts. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sami Mataji. I'm also conscious when you're presenting to people, people's attention span is very limited these days, after 10, 15 minutes. So maybe, depending on your audience, you can just cut it down to a few slides and time to do it in 15, 20 minutes if you want to. Yeah. Anyone else has got any feedback or comments or reflections from today's presentation? How many of you have distributed of tried distributing any sets so far? Has anyone made an attempt to connect with your circle of influence?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, yes, Dhanavad Pranam. Yes, I've distributed one so far as a group, and then I've got a very close to finishing another one. So for me, it works as a group, the 25-pound initiative.
Fantastic. Well done, Chandrika Mataji. So we got 300 to do. I made a count yesterday. I think we've only done like 25 sets so far. So we got another 275. I mean, goals are arbitrary in one sense. So it's an arbitrary goal we set. What really counts is our efforts and our attempts to please Srila Prabhupada. We can only try, everything else is beyond our control. Any other reflections or comments? Hare Krishna Mataji, Shobana.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Very, very inspiring talk, and I'm really inspired. I've done well with Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, and I was doubting about this because even I haven't read the Caitanya Caritamrita except with Sudapa Das Prabhuji's book.
Mm-hmm.
And but I think I certainly am so inspired. I will get a set myself, but I will inspire in my group as well, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mataji. That's very encouraging. Very encouraging. Anyone else would like to say anything or have any reflections? We have sets in our storehouse. You can just contact us and we can make it available. I can make available the presentation also. So if no one else has got any comments or reflections, we'll close today's session. I thank you so much for your attendance and your desire to distribute Caitanya Caritamrita. All glories to your service. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha, kripa sindhubheva cha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo
Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namo.
Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai.
Jai,
Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
jai,
Sri
Jai.
Caitanya Caritamrita Ki Jai.
jai.
Gaura Purnima Hari Hari Bol.